Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, we're going to be talking about cryptocurrency and that whole market that has us very much captivated. And with me today is Arden Stiles. He is the Chief Commercial Officer of Crypto Cash. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Lance. Good to see you.
So, Arden, I guess the first question that I have is, what are three key things that you think every entrepreneur should know?
Oh boy, that's a tricky one. Three key things. Well, I think the first thing is that de depending on, even if you're really prepared, even if you do everything right, sometimes it just comes down to blind luck, right? Things turn on a dime. The doors of history swing on small hinges. So
Love
you
that.
might just talk to the right person, or you're out one night and you just might happen to meet the right person and it connects and they need your service, whatever it may be. And that's just blind happenstance, right? Conversely, you can do everything right, and then something happens in the environment and it all crashes down, not your fault.
Yeah.
So the blind luck, it has a lot to do with it, but you can make your own luck as well. So that's probably number two, is make your own luck. So be prepared, be open to the opportunity and exploit the opportunity. So that'd be number two. And then number three, I think, is you really have to define what success is for you. So is it being able to buy a condo in Maui, or is it being able to spend more time with your family? That's a lot different, right? So you got to figure out what success means to you, and then how your entrepreneurial spirit can support that.
Yeah, love it. Those are great pieces of advice for sure, right off the hop. And I love to ask that question before we really get into the backstory of your entrepreneurial journey. So let's pivot that direction. But first, tell me a little bit about the problems then that Crypto Cash, your business, solves.
Okay, so Crypto Cash is not, we're not actually a crypto mining company. However, we build the infrastructure that is used by crypto mining companies. So the analogy I always use is, we are the people that build the pickaxes that are used during the gold rush. Okay.
Yeah.
So a few gold rush people made money, but the real money was made in the pickaxes.
Yeah.
And the hotels that housed everybody out digging, digging the ditches. So we build the infrastructure, and the infrastructure involves the containers, the pods that the ASIC miners go into. You can't leave these computers out in the rain. You have to put them into a solid structure.
Yeah.
We build those structures. We do all the HVAC, the electrical, the cabling, the power generation, the certification, all that stuff, so that you can start mining with your mining set. We do free air and immersion cooling systems, depending on the location of the pods. But we're finding now that most people are going to immersion right away. So it's a different way to cool your computers.
Okay.
And they last longer, and you can run them faster, et cetera. So there's economic benefits to it.
So how do you find yourself then at this intersection of such a new technology? Do you have a background on the construction side, on the engineering side, on the computing side? Like where does this background, I guess, come from that got you here?
Yeah. So my career started out in management consulting. So I worked with dozens and dozens of different type of organizations in different industries all over North America and Western Europe. So you start to see patterns about what works and what doesn't work in a business. And there's a big difference. Here's another entrepreneurial thing. There's a big difference between a good idea and a good business. Huge difference.
Yeah.
The trick is to bring those two together. But what I've seen over and over again is that great ideas are not necessarily good businesses. And so the entrepreneurial mindset gets stuck on this. It's a great idea, but yeah, it's a terrible business.
Yeah.
So you got to kill it. So I can see those patterns. And then I got into operations management, venture capital, and now the crypto side. So I don't get into the coding side of it, but I do understand the business landscape, competitive pressures, how to market what we offer in a simple, compelling way. And then you got to understand what the clients are looking for, which is a greater degree of certainty. Okay? So for the entrepreneurial audience, most of your clients are looking for a greater degree of certainty. So whether that's a product or a service that you're providing, the end purchaser wants a greater degree of certainty. So the trick is to figure out what that certainty is.
So just like the gold rush, there's been a lot of businesses that rushed into the mining side of things. And I would imagine that there must have been a lot of businesses that were then trying to help them do the things that you guys are doing. So setting up the actual mining operation, the infrastructure part of it. So how do you differentiate yourself in such a very new industry?
Yes, so that's a key thing to do because very few mining companies, if you're a crypto miner, you're not going to manufacture, design your own equipment. Very few actually do that. So that's the vertical integration. Very few. Most do all the coding, the software, and then some buy the computers and bring it together. Some do hosting. It's a quite a diverse ecosystem. So we decided to be the niche player that provides cost-effective but really effective infrastructure for the mining operations. And so what crypto miners are looking for is exactly that. They need a reliable place to put this very expensive equipment and to run it 24 hours a day for years on end in varying climates. So that's our niche. That's where we focus. And we work with design companies, world-class manufacturing companies that have done this for years, but for other industries, typically oil and gas lands. So we've taken that and evolved it for a crypto mining application, which isn't a lot different from an oil and gas application, believe it or not.
Yeah, which is really interesting because where you're located in Calgary, I mean, obviously there's a huge brain trust around the oil and gas industry, and how do you serve that, and how do you power that, and the infrastructure pieces that go along with that whole industry. And so you're leveraging this brain trust, I would imagine, that's in Calgary to create this really probably world recognized stream, I guess, or industry that's emerging around the cryptocurrency part of it, taking advantage of that.
That's right. So you take legacy approaches to problems, and then you merge that, evolve it to the latest Web 3.0 application.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Is that I'm curious about that because that's the way my brain often works. So I'm not one of these people that come up with the brilliant idea necessarily, like something that's completely novel. How my brain works is I see somebody doing something and it's like, that could be done a little better or a little differently, or potentially just positioned differently. And so that's where my success has been. Are you similar in that sense, or are you the guy, the visionary that's like, here is a novel way of doing something completely different?
Right. Okay. So that's a great question. And it's a fun answer, Lance, right? So our CEO is really the visionary, okay? Looking out beyond the horizon, and I help actually make that commercially viable. So that's really my role. Now the thing is, if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you have to keep in mind that whatever thing you're thinking up, you think it's novel, it probably isn't, right? That's the sad reality. And B, somebody else there is probably doing it cheaper and faster. Okay, so that's no different than what we're doing. Our competition typically comes from China, and it is cheaper and is faster. So part of what we do is educate our clients how our system is different. So we have, for example, industry recognized certifications. So if somebody, the fire suppression is guaranteed to work, that et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
If you're getting something from a foreign country, you won't get that certification, or you might not, or it costs a lot extra to bring it over here and get the certification. You see, so we manufacture in North America, so all the certification is in place. But from an entrepreneur perspective, always think that whatever idea you have, somebody else has probably already done it and thrown a lot more money at it than you think.
Yeah.
So you really, is your offering really different? That should keep you up at night. Is your offering really different?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really interesting, I think, in just that ability, I think, for entrepreneurs to approach it from different points of views, right? But the real secret to the success that I've found is exactly what you're talking about, is the ability to position it to where the market's needs are. That's the person that's going to win, regardless of how great you think your your product is or your service is over what the competitor is, because there always seems to be somebody with something slightly better or some other slight angle to it, right?
Yes. So
Yeah.
as I always say, you can build a 12-foot ladder. You can build a 12-foot ladder, but there's already somebody out there, or there's always somebody out there with a 13-foot wall.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. You can build a 13-foot ladder, and hopefully the wall is only 12 feet high. But always keep that in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. So now you guys have been at this for 3 years, I think you
3 years,
said.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's brand new. And what was it, a year or two ago, China, they announced that they were going to ban crypto mining in that country.
Yeah.
And so I loved what you were talking about at the very beginning around the key things that every entrepreneur needs to know. And one of them you said was luck. I mean, sometimes it's just luck.
Finally.
Yeah, so that must have created some great opportunity for you, or a lot of interest anyway, as people started to look beyond China.
Oh yeah, we were inundated with inquiries all day, every day for months on end. So all that computing infrastructure in China was now looking for a new home, and typically it's North America. So we were totally inundated. So yeah, as an entrepreneur, you got to make hay when the sun shines, and prepare to exploit that opportunity. So people use pivot all the time, but it's kind of an overdone term. It's really just keeping your eyes, see what's happening, and acting upon it, right? So we didn't know China would shut down. We had no idea, but it was a happy circumstance that you got to be ready to exploit.
Yeah. Well, and with that, like the manufacturing your own luck or just falling into it, there's also the flip side of that. There's lots of different challenges that one has to overcome. And I'm curious, from a personal perspective,
Yes.
how do you, I guess, identify or overcome some of the entrepreneurial difficulties or challenges that you face as you're living this entrepreneurial life?
Right. So number one is, how do you communicate to the world what you're doing? And so
Mm-hmm.
personally, you're waking up at night, or you're in the shower in the morning, you say, I think I've got a great idea. It sounds like a great idea. Well, how do we get that out to the world? It's like winking at somebody in a dark room, right? The only person that knows you're winking is yourself.
Yeah.
So you need to bring awareness to your innovation to the world. And now it's very easy to do that on LinkedIn and Instagram and all that stuff. It's very easy to do that. So a large part of what I do is communicating our offering to the world. And we've received calls from as far away as Rwanda, just using tools that are available to everyone else.
Yeah.
So how to communicate, that's a personal challenge. The other personal challenge is, how do you scale intellectually, energetically to the demand, right? You've only got so much brain share and capacity. How do you actually scale when your orders go from 1 pod unit to 50? And we've seen that kind of jump, right? It's pretty scary. But so then you got to line up your distributors and your customers and your clients and your manufacturers. You got to get them all lined up and ready to go. So that can be an academic and intellectual challenge as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely can be. And so when you guys were experiencing this huge influx that was overwhelming you from that whole China regulatory change, how did you manage through that then?
Yeah. So we had a lot of internal meetings about our process, and
Yep.
how do we quote, and how do we bring the opportunity right through to a qualified quote opportunity. So that's a whole process in itself. We leveraged technology, so cloud-based software that is available to everyone, everything from quoting to Google Drives to all of that.
Yep.
And then what we did too is we tracked the sales opportunities and follow-ups, and you just got to keep wearing your shoe leather out, even though you're not actually going anywhere. I can do it all from my house here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to summarize, leverage the tools and make sure your internal process can scale. A lot of companies die on the vine. They die on the scale part.
Yeah.
So that's very important.
Yeah. Systems, scalability, massively important.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. We've been going through at our business a bit of well, not a bit. It's been a fairly rapid growth over the last 12 months, in particular the last 6 months. And that is definitely where we're starting to see some of the fractures in our business is the processes and the systems. Anything where there was like a little bit of a crack is starting to now really expose itself, where before it didn't, right? You could kind of manage through it, but now it's really become a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, most businesses that have that inflection point at like $1 million in revenue or 7 to 10 people, and then they go to the next step. And it's usually around 30 people. If you have 30 people working with you, that's
Yeah.
a significant inflection point where you now need pretty significant systems and processes in place to handle the business.
Yeah. 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 And you're bang on. I mean, that's right in that range in which we're at right now. So I'm really curious if you had the ability, to sit down and pen yourself a letter. So your younger self, the 3 years ago self, when you were starting down this road of the crypto cash business, what would you have in that letter? What advice, what would you include in
Yeah, I'd say don't do it. No,
it?
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Well, 3 years ago is not that long ago. But what I would probably say is make sure that with whatever product you're coming out with first on the crypto mining side, make sure you fully understand the competitive landscape.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is, what do they offer? What are the features and benefits that the competitors offer? And then your product, is it really different? Okay, so our first iteration, it wasn't different at all. Okay,
mm,
it wasn't different despite varying opinions. And entrepreneurs typically believe, yes, I believe it's different. No, it's not actually. It's not different at all. So you got to really take that sober second thought in the beginning, and then come out with something that's truly different. So
mm.
what is different, right? What does that actually mean to be different? That's a tricky one too for entrepreneurs to ask, because
Yeah.
they have their own bias, right? So you have to get outside opinions. Is this different? If so, how different? And then how do you communicate that difference?
Well,
So
and is that a difference even that the market wants or is going to value?
exactly, Lance. So for example, you've got a Wendy's hamburger here, and you got the McDonald's Big Mac. They're both hamburgers,
Yeah.
both have beef patties and all that, but McDonald's has the sesames on the bun, and they've got that secret Big Mac sauce.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the only thing that makes it different. They
Yeah.
sold billions of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think it's really interesting that when we're doing marketing for companies, how many of them have no idea what their differentiation is actually.
Right.
It becomes just a sea of a me too, as opposed to really staking a claim on something. And so they have no hope in ever communicating it because
Exactly.
they don't understand it. They never were thinking through it strategically to go, okay, this is how we are going to be different. This is how we're going to gain market share. This is what the marketplace is telling us that they need, and that there's a gap here that other people aren't satisfying that. So we're going to monopolize on that.
Yeah, there's nothing more elusive than an obvious fact, according to Sherlock Holmes, right? And so if you look at Starbucks, for example, coffee is coffee is coffee, barista, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's basically the same thing. But what Starbucks did that was brilliant was that it was the creation of the third place. Okay, the first place is your home, the second place is your office. So Starbucks figured out that people need a third place to congregate.
Yeah.
So they built the Starbucks cafes. There's one in every street corner. It's a comfortable place, fireplaces, Wi-Fi, music, the whole thing. They just happen to sell you coffee when you're there.
Yeah.
And they've made billions of dollars based on that very small distinction.
Yeah. So are they a coffee company or are they the third space company? Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Gathering
Exactly.
company.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. So, okay. So in that respect, just applying it back to crypto cash,
Yes.
then when you were going through those exercises in the early days, knowing what you know or knew when you were going into that
Right.
business, how did that inform then the development of crypto cash? Because, like you said, at the beginning, you were pretty much, me too. You were similar to everybody else.
In a way, yes, yes. So the marketing side, our marketing is a lot different than the competitive landscape.
Okay.
So so it's the beat of crypto mining. That's our tagline. So it's fresh, it's young, it's disruptive, it's colorful. So that immediately is different. Not a lot different, but it is different. Number
Mhm.
two, the actual performance of our enclosures as well is different. So the way we handle airflows is a lot different from the competition. Okay, so and there's lots of technical reasons behind that, but we can move a lot more air using less energy. So then your computers are perform better, basically.
Yep.
And our pods may be slightly more expensive, but when you net it all out, you're going to get more performance from your crypto mine. And so that's the one differentiator. The second differentiator. The third is we use industrial skids as the foundation for the building itself. Solid steel. It's been used in the oil and gas industry for decades. Totally indestructible. And we build a self-framing panel building on top of that, which requires no internal structure support. So what you get is that you get a faster build time. It's more cost effective. It can handle any weather, hurricanes, hail, snow, whatever it may be. It moves a lot of air. It's certified in North America and it's built in North America. So those things are highly appealing to a number of clients.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, it sounds like from something that began as just yeah, we're pretty similar to everybody else. That's a lot of differentiation there that you've layered in.
Absolutely. So it goes back to the question: Have we actually innovated since the time of the pyramids? Right. You can argue that there's been very little true innovation since the pyramids. The microchip is probably the greatest one, and medicine. But if you
Yeah.
look at it, mathematics, construction, have we really advanced since then? Debatable. So
Yeah.
so innovation, true innovation, is about building enduring capability in your organization.
Hmm.
So that means you got to roll that out. You got to think like that all day, every day. Everything you say, everything you post has to be different, or you're just going to get killed by the competition.
Yeah, I love that perspective of innovation, right? And just the role that it plays within business in general. I don't know if I would consider myself an innovator again, because I don't really come up with these wild ideas.
Yeah.
I'm not really innovating. I might iterate, right, a bit
Yeah.
off of what other people are doing, but not necessarily innovate. Yeah.
It's a key point. Most people don't understand what innovation means, right? There's been very little true innovation in a long, long time.
Yeah.
If you go back to Steve Jobs at Apple, so if you look at his original keynote when he was presenting the iPhone for the first time, that's really, there was the world before the iPhone, and then there was the
Yeah.
world after the iPhone. And
Yeah.
for 45 minutes on the stage, Steve Jobs changed the world as we know it. Okay, that's
Mhm.
true innovation. Elon Musk, you can make the same argument.
Yeah.
Okay, but electric cars, that's been around for a long time. Going to space has been around for a long time. Building tunnels and stuff like that's been around for a long time. But he has taken it to the next step. But true innovation, creating something new, and then being able to do that over and over and over again, Apple's a great example.
Yeah. So now, would you say that within crypto cash that there was true innovation there?
No, honestly
No.
speaking, no.
Okay.
It's more of an iteration.
Yeah.
Right? So an innovation would have been to come up with an entirely new way to cool a chip, other than using air and liquid.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe that's cold fusion. I don't know what it is, but no, we didn't come up with that. Absolutely not. So we iterated, we evolved, and there's place in the market for that. Absolutely
Yeah.
no problem.
Yeah.
But true innovation is very expensive, takes a lot of money, unless you're lucky. So most companies evolve things,
Yeah.
and that's what we
So
did.
So I'd love to talk a little bit about the journey, because from point A, and I mean, we could break it down just to crypto cash 3 years ago. So point A being 3 years ago, and point B being today. I don't imagine it doesn't sound like it was a linear journey to here, but
Right.
even your overall entrepreneurial journey yourself, I'm sure has not been very linear at all. So can you talk to me a little bit about that? Because I think there's a lot of people, younger entrepreneurs in particular, who are thinking, well, they kind of have to have it all mapped out exactly
Yeah.
the way it's going to be. And as
Right.
soon as they start to see some deviation from that, then it's like a question of, well, am I failing, or is it just, or am I actually winning because I'm meandering where the market will take me, and so on. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that a
Sure.
bit.
Sure. I remember a long time ago, I did an interview with a recruiting firm, and
Yeah.
they said, "Oh, you haven't been here for longer than 5 years or whatever. The client's not going to be interested." To which I responded, I said, "Well, that tells me everything I need to know, because that tells me that your client is so stuck in the current way of doing things that the world is just going to move right on past." Of course, I didn't get the job, but what they missed was that in your career as an entrepreneur, it's highly unlikely you're going to do anything uh, like anything specific for more than 2, 3 years.
Yeah.
The reason why I say that is because technology is changing so fast. Industries come and go, collapses, wars, you name it. My career has been impacted by all of that, and so it's highly unlikely that you'll stick anywhere or a particular task for 2 to 3 years. It's just very unlikely, unless you're with a company or your company and you've grown it and it's become very successful. And within that, you've been able to move around and respond to market forces,
Mhm.
because there will be continual disruptions. You can wake up, go to bed on Friday, wake up on Monday morning, and your industry can be gone,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
So in my own career, I've done that, moved around, been flexible. I've done finance, investments, investment banking, venture capital, operations, you name it. And now I'm here. And so all my skill set is being applied to what we're doing now.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and talk about like just one of the most volatile markets, like just the crypto industry in general. There's just so much volatility that is inherent within that right now, because talk about innovation, right? That has innovated the whole monetary system, right?
yes,
It's a new one, and so it's really interesting what you're talking about in terms of navigating all that. And so you're now in one in which there's tons and tons of that volatility, and obviously you guys are navigating it well right now. You're finding success,
yeah.
but how does it inform what you're talking about, the flexibility that it's not just a linear path? How does that inform you as an entrepreneur as you're navigating through such a volatile industry?
Yeah. So as Warren Buffett said, that a falling tide exposes all rocks.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing now with Bitcoin prices going way down, a lot of small companies are being wiped out. But the ones that are well capitalized and have the guts, that this is the time that they just build like there's no tomorrow. So we're seeing that. Conversely, a rising tide floats all boats, right? So you see all that. So as an entrepreneur, you have to be aware of that and not get stuck in your own way of thinking and your own track, because you will miss the stuff that's changing. You'll miss it.
Yeah.
So you got to really keep an open mind. You got to really be flexible in even the way you think about your own work. Very hard for people to do. Just the way
Yeah.
you think about what you're actually doing. So at work, I try to, I'm a bit of a disruptor, and I question, why do we even think like that?
Hmm.
Because we could get hammered.
Yeah. Totally. Well,
Yeah,
and I'm going to be really curious to hear your answer to my next question,
right.
because of something that you said earlier on when I said, okay, so you've been at this now for 3 years, and you're like, well, that's not a very long time for any business. But in this particular industry, I mean, you're kind of one of the forefounders almost,
In a way, yeah, yeah,
right? and not only that is it's just again the market is just so volatile that there's just so much is happening in such a compressed amount of time, where in a lot of other industries, this might be you might have gone through a decades worth of kind of ups and downs and sideways and curveballs and everything else. You're compressing that all into 3 years. So my question to you is, if you could go back, say, you hop in a time machine and you get back to the start of the business and you had a big suitcase of money that you're able to take along with you. And I don't know what that number is for your business, if that's $1 million or that's 10 million or whatever it's going to be, but it's a big sizable chunk that could change the way that this business is created, and managed and run or set up and started, or growing. What would you do with that money? What would you do differently than what, if anything, I guess?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Probably what I would do is come up with better designs earlier, right? So we went through a lot of iteration, and that's a costly process. But in the end of the day, you've got a great product now, but it takes a long time to evolve to that. So if you had money in the beginning, you could iterate or at least create a product that would be 3 years sooner. Okay, because you could afford to do all the R&D and the engineering and the design sooner, and avoid all those iterations in between.
Yeah.
You could, for example, go out and hire the best designers in the world and then run a competition and do all that. I would also spend more on marketing, okay? Because the marketing piece is really important. If people don't know what you're doing, it's as good as useless. So put a lot more money into the marketing, and then so those two things together can be very powerful, because the crypto mining industry is actually quite small. It's dominated by a handful of companies. They all know each other.
Yeah.
So if one company is doing one thing, then everybody knows about it. So it kind of feeds on itself.
Yeah, I think I really love that you said marketing, obviously, as a marketing company. And that is a common thread that we hear from a lot of people. And I loved what you were saying with regard to, like, earlier on about the blinking in a dark room. You're the only one that knows that you're blinking. And that's the whole marketing exercise, right? Is you have to have the awareness, you have to be able to communicate, you have to be able to market. So just thinking of that in particular, I would really appreciate it if you could speak to me a little bit about specifically what it is that you would do differently from a marketing, or maybe layer on from a marketing perspective than what you were able to with the resources that you had or currently have.
Yeah. So what I would have done back then, if we had the money, was video. Just do video, more video interviews with the teams, the designers, the clients. More 3D renderings, so you could drop the products into different environments for the clients. Do video walkthroughs.
Yeah.
So we do a little bit of that now, but it's very expensive to do it properly. So a lot of our clients say, well, what does it look like, and how would our computers fit here, and what does the shelving look like, and what do the PDUs look like, and how does the water flow? Well, let me show you, right? So we can't do that right now because it's $1,000 per second or whatever, every 10 seconds. So that's what I would have done.
Yeah, very interesting. And again, I really love that you went there. I don't know if you realize this, but that was actually the beginning of Ample Media, was on the video side of things. And so we started out in animation. That's the core. So you queued that up just perfectly. I really appreciate that, Arden. Well, anyway, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. We've kind of come to the end of our time here together today, but I think you're in just a fascinating industry. You have a ton of insights. I love how you drew on all of that, managerial consulting work that you were doing before. And obviously you're learning a ton of stuff as you're going along as well, and really applying your learnings to further in this business. So it's pretty obvious that you guys are going to see some success. And from what I understand, you have some systems that are going to be coming online here this fall. And so you're proving out everything that you guys have been working so hard on the last 3 years.
Absolutely. It should be an exciting end of the year.
Yeah. So if anybody wanted to connect with you to learn more about what's going on over at Crypto Cash or anything else, I guess, what would be the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, so go to our website, cryptocashmining.com. Cash is spelled CACHE.com.
Okay.
And the parent company is CGen Environmental Group. CGen is CEGEN environmentalgroup.com. So cgenenvironmental.com.
Excellent.
See what we do. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Arden. I really appreciate taking the time today. And for those of you who are listening, if you enjoyed this episode, you want to check out some other stories, head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca. That's where you're going to find all of our archives as well as our future episodes as well. And until the next episode, everybody have a prosperous day.